remembering and looking down and seeing Sundari Radha Devi's new name there listed on the Zoom. So just wanted to express my gratitude and appreciation to her, and wonderful to have been present for that ceremony on Sunday. Okay, so we're going to begin, and we'll start by reciting the invocation prayers. We can do that all together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Try to share my screen, and dear Lord, I hope it works properly. Let's see what we got here. Are you seeing my screen now? Someone can let me know.
Not yet.
No.
Nope. Okay, let's try again.
Nope.
Okay, share screen. Oh, that's why. Okay. Now we're going to try it again. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's not what I wanted to share. Let me try it. Can you see the screen now still? It's the verse?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you all very much for your help. Okay, so we're reading today from the 11th canto, reading chapter 3, continuing the conversation as everything was set up for us with that dramatic Broadway display mental gathering and the theater of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're continuing with verse 4 today. And Antariksh, one of the 9 Yogendras, is speaking to King Nemi. Excuse me. So we'll recite the verse and then go through the translation and purport. Evam shishtani bhutani pravishtaha panchadatubihi ekada sadatmanam vibhajan jusate gunan. Evam, in the manner just described, shishtani, created, bhutani, the living beings, pravishtaha, having entered, panchadatubihi, created by the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Ekadaha, onefold, as the overseer of the mind. Dasadaha, tenfold, as the overseer of the 5 senses of perception and 5 organs of action. Atmanam, himself. Vibhajan, dividing. Jusate, he engages. He causes the individual soul to engage. Gunan, with the material modes. Okay, translation and purport by the servants and disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supersoul enters the material bodies of the created beings, activates the mind and senses, and thus causes the conditioned souls to approach the 3 modes of material nature for sense gratification. The following, in the purport, the following is a summary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary on this verse. The one supersoul enters the gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and uses the activated material mind to subtly divide the sensory activities of the conditioned souls among the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, which are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. And by a further gross division, the five working senses, the hands, the legs, speech, the genitals, and the anus. Because liberated souls have a strong tendency to serve the Lord, they are not attracted by the dualities of material good and evil. They derive their pleasure through devotion and love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who eternally enjoys his own transcendental pastimes beyond the material manifestation. When the conditioned souls forget their loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they develop illicit desires. Therefore, unable to serve the form, taste, fragrance, and other aspects of Lord Vishnu, these souls become bound to the bitter fruits of fruitive activities. But if their love of Godhead is somehow or other awakened, the conditioned souls can dovetail all their sensory activities in the service of the Lord's transcendental pastimes. Actually, all materialistic activities are most undesirable, but the conditioned soul, under the influence of illusion, sees apparent distinctions between good and bad, pleasing and displeasing, and so on. The Lord, the Supersoul, having entered the collective and individual consciousness of the living entities, knows the heart of everyone. Therefore, when a sincere soul aspires for spiritual perfection, the Lord frees him from material bondage and arouses his propensity to serve the Lord of Vaikuntha. Love of Godhead flourishes in the variegated flavors of transcendental enjoyment. Such a beautiful statement there. Love of Godhead flourishes in the variegated flavors of transcendental enjoyment. In ignorance, however, the conditioned soul considers himself the proper object of service and thus misunderstands the entire existential situation. I'll read that last line again. In ignorance, however, the conditioned soul considers himself
There it is.
the
Beautiful.
hello considers himself the proper object of service and thus misunderstands the entire existential situation. Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, disciples of Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitangena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So verse again from the 11th canto, chapter 3, verse number 4. Evam Shishtani Bhutani Pravishtaha Panchadatu Bihi. Ekada dasadatmanam vibhajanjusate gunan. The supersoul enters the material bodies of the created beings, activates the mind and senses, and thus causes the conditioned souls to approach the three modes of material nature for sense gratification. Okay, so I'm just going to try to change my screen again. Let me know if you can still see. Can you now see the presentation?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, I've entitled this presentation, Who's to Blame? Because I found it very intriguing that Antariksh in his conversation with King Nimi, he's basically explaining here that the person to blame is the super soul. So it's all the super soul's fault that somehow or other I am here in the material world and have these material desires and thus engage with the three modes of material nature. So that is certainly a thing. We know in the material world that a lot of people like to blame God for everything that goes wrong because he's the creator and therefore he's responsible for everything. So we're going to discuss this topic a little bit today and hopefully come to a conclusion to really understand who is to blame. We'll break this down into three main points, which were discussed in the verse and purport today. The three modes of material nature, the super soul, and sort of free will or our minute independence. So we'll start with 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita, which many of you may be familiar with, which starts with the soul or the Atma. That's us, by the way. And then we have the world, which is Prakriti, the place where that soul is embodied or in some ways imprisoned. Then we have the action or karma, which is what we, the souls, are doing, our activities. And then we have time or kala here in the material world. And ultimately, we have the 5th topic of the Gita, which is Ishvara, or the Supreme Controller, Krishna, God, or as we were hearing last night from Jai Nitai, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the three modes of material nature, hopefully all of us are familiar with them. They're one of the 5 main topics, being Prakriti, or this world that we're living in. Krishna dedicates about 1/7 of the verses of the Gita speak about the 3 modes of material nature. So 100 verses speak about the 3 modes. And chapter 14 primarily focuses on the 3 modes. But chapters 17 and 18 also explain many, many very helpful things for us to understand the modes of material nature and their material influences that are around us. So we can see this wonderful picture, which isn't really so wonderful. In one sense, we have Krishna, and then we have the 3 modes of material nature manifested as puppeteers or controllers who are basically manipulating the living entities in the material world. So understanding that in one way or another, we are controlled and bound by the material energy. And in some instances, we may even feel forced to act or do things in a way that we seem to not be able to control. So like that. Mode also can mean guna. Guna can also mean rope or that which binds us. So the 3 modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, or sattva, rajas, and tamas. And they're often compared to the primary colors that mix together and create a spectrum of diversity. Srila Prabhupada said 3 times 3 times 3, and it continues on like that. that these modes of material nature ultimately are the cause of all diversity in the material world. Prabhupada explains the millions of 8,400,000 species of life are all examples of the diversity of the three modes of material action, three modes of material nature in action, like that. Ignorance, here's some of the symptoms of ignorance: madness, anger, violence, too much or too little sleep, foolishness, envy, revenge, hatred, harm of others, and self-harm. Essentially, the mode of ignorance is delusional, destructive, obscure, and it impedes. And a person is basically pursuing pleasure in the mode of ignorance, but is just so lazy in one sense that there's no way to commit to achieving that pleasure. So one finds that they say ignorance is bliss, so one just feels happy and one's own sloth, you could say. Characteristics of rajas, or the mode of passion, is one feels greedy or passionate, agitated mind and senses, unlimited desires and longings, intensely driven to fulfill desires for self-gain and egotistical. Essentially, again, selfish, lusty. It's confusing, and it also provokes us. And the person, again, is pursuing pleasure. All of these are related to the pursuit of pleasure because Anandamayo Vyasat is the nature of the living entity. The nature of the spirit soul is to seek pleasure, is to look for bliss, to look for happiness. But in the mode of passion, the commitment is strong, but it's there specifically for material benefit of oneself and those around him. We saw in the purport, as Prabhupada explained at the end, or not Prabhupada, but Prabhupada's disciples explained at the end of the purport, that in ignorance, and that means in ignorance of the way that things are working, the modes of material nature, that one misidentifies that I'm the purpose or the source or the goal of pleasure, and I should be receiving that pleasure, and therefore one misunderstands the entire creation. Mode of goodness, as we know, characterized by purity, happiness, inner satisfaction, cleanliness, humility, tolerance, compassion, and a searching for spiritual knowledge. So essentially, it's more selfless, based on knowledge, and it's clear, it clarifies, and it pacifies. And again, we're realize that in the search for happiness, we become frustrated with the rewards of hard work. Srila Prabhupada the purport today explained at the very beginning that one is forced to eat the bitter fruits of fruitive action. So one realizes that I'm sick of eating these bitter fruits, and one starts to look for more refined ways to become happy in this world. So these are the modes of material nature. So one might ask, well, which mode am I in? And that's a good question to ask and see which modes are we being governed by? How is the material energy working on us? So Bhagavad Gita explains that each mode is constantly fighting for prominence. So it may not be that all the time we're under just one mode. The modes of material nature are perpetually in battle and fight for us. And we may feel that even within ourselves. Sometimes we're pulled like this, or after a late night, if you need to get up early, you need to get up, and there's going to be suffering, but you just have a tendency to throw your head back down on the pillow and hit the snooze button. So, something inside of you is pulling you towards even, like, say, passion or goodness, but another mode is fighting. So we're in the middle, like a tug of war between the modes of material nature. And by practicing the symptoms of different modes, then we can invoke that mode. So we need to cultivate those modes. And again, here we start to touch the third topic we'll mention today, which is free will, or our minute independence, that we have to start to desire to function inside of another mode and consciously cultivate that. And to be free, we should practice the symptoms of goodness. So the mode of goodness is considered a springboard or a launch pad for getting to the last mode. So this verse, Jesus, he said that we have to be in the world, but not of it. So that is the topic of transcendence, which will come later. So what are the advantages of goodness? So these are just different points that we can feel healthy and happiness and all of these things. But these are also trappings, as we often hear. So in general, there's also a fourth mode, which is the spiritual mode, and that's the mode of transcendence. And that really is the mode that we're trying to achieve and get to drag ourselves from ignorance through passion to goodness and ultimately to transcendence, so that we can actually become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. So keeping in mind this first statement that actually it's the supersoul that is responsible for our interactions with the three modes of material nature. So we're going to continue on and try to discuss that. So coming now to the principle of the second topic, which is Paramatma. Please forgive me, I'm flowing quickly through this. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the topic matter thus far. So Paramatma, or the super soul, is as described in the purport. And very importantly, not only is the super soul there present in my heart, or in the region of the heart within me, as a guide, as a friend, as that higher conscience that's trying to encourage me. We heard the two birds in the tree came up yesterday in class. So that bird is like, hello, will you please listen to me? I'm trying to give you some good advice to help you out here. And we're like, shut up. I'd rather do this. I'm happier doing that. So the Paramatma is there. Krishna expands himself into the heart of every living entity as a guide, as the eternal friend. But the supersoul also is present in every single atom of matter. So in that way, the supersoul is present in everything around us, and is also igniting and has power and control over and that material energy also. So the supersoul is in us, trying to guide us, but the supersoul is also in and present within the material energy and the material elements. So here we see, as the one sun appears reflected in countless jewels. So, the sunlight manifests in all these different jewels in the same way. Govinda manifests himself as the Paramatma in the hearts of all living entities. So he's not just in our heart, but he's in the hearts of everyone. And the ideal is, when we see a devotee or we see another person, we offer respects to them. This idea that Trinata Pisu Niche Na toward a Pisu Hishna, Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Siddha Hari. We could chant the holy names when we have the mood of humility and tolerance, and we're able to also offer all respect to others. It doesn't distinguish that we're offering respect to only humans or to only devotees, but to all others, and also to not expect any respect. We can see, living in the material world for a little while, that you can't really expect respect in the material world. You can try, but you will definitely be disappointed. So we have to develop this vision. So Bhagavad Gita continues, and it explains to us that actually there are three doers, three personalities who are responsible for actions. And those three doers starts with us. We are also a doer in the material world. Sometimes we have a tendency sometimes to say, I'm not the doer, you're not the doer, Prabhu. But actually, we are one of the doers. We do have a part to play in what happens in the material world. Prakriti, or the material energy, is also one of the doers. So the three modes of material nature are also doing things, making things happen. And ultimately, the super soul is the primary doer, the fulfiller of desires. And how do these three work together? We see in this diagram that basically, me as a soul, I simply desire. So that is my part of the doing. I simply desire. And by my desires, by my thoughts, and hopefully we'll get to it later, Gayato Vishyapam Sam Sangaste Shupajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Kroto Bijayate. 262 of Bhagavad Gita explains that more or less it starts with our thinking. And from this perspective of thinking, it moves to feeling. And when we feel it very strongly, then we will it into action. So thinking, feeling, and willing. So it starts with that desire internally. Then the supersoul sanctions, and the modes of material nature carry out the actions. So ultimately, it's starting with our desire, the supersoul sanctions, and the modes carried out. Now, of course, sometimes we may think, well, I'm also desiring to have $1 million, or desiring to have a nice house, or desiring not to be in a particular situation that's unpleasurable. And how come the supersoul doesn't sanction that? Well, also the sanctioning, some people do get that, but not everyone, because the supersoul sanctions according to our kind of adhikar, or our qualification. So like that, the supersoul is sanctioning according to that. But we can also develop that adhikar. So, you might practice guitar a lot in this lifetime, thinking I'm going to become a famous musician, and you don't do it in this life, but you've developed some adhikar, and in the next life you might take birth and practice some more, and 3 4 births later you might become Jimi Hendrix or someone like that. This is the way that qualification, or adhikar, we do carry things over into the next life through the subtle body, and certain qualifications we perform tapasya life after life in certain ways. Then we may get that. This is how the super soul sanctions, and then ultimately the modes listen to the super soul and fulfill. So the Paramatma, or super soul, is the guide of all individual living beings, and does not take part in the fulfilling desires of the living beings, but he arranges for their fulfillment by material nature. What does that mean? It means that the super soul doesn't personally go and fulfill, but the super soul kind of says, okay, modes of material nature, now you fulfill those desires. So like that, because Krishna is always aloof. He's not touching or tainted in any way by the material energy, material nature, even though it is his material energy. And of course, the super soul is the constant companion. This is the role of the Lord. He's there with us all the time. And we really need to open up and hear from him, because he is trying to give us the best guidance possible to assist us to come back to him. Again, as the purport was explaining, that the super soul is trying like anything to help us, to give us the knowledge, wisdom, and clarity to act in the way that will be most conducive to us returning to our original position of dasa nudasa nudas. So Krishna is the eternal friend of each and every one of us. And we see in this picture, and we have a group that are reading Brihad Bhagavatam together at the moment now. Such an amazing, beautiful book. Just every page, we're reading 4 pages a day and sharing our reflections on a WhatsApp group. And every day just reading the 4 pages is like, wow, this is such an amazing journey. And we see in this picture Gopakumar ultimately returning to his original position after journeying throughout the entire universe and material and spiritual worlds, and just returns to returns to Vrindavan, which he thinks is Vrindavan, but ultimately is Goloka Vrindavan, to be embraced by Krishna, who says to him that every day I look down this path and I'm just been waiting for so long for you to come back to me. So Krishna is just really, he's hoping and waiting that we will eventually use our free will to decide to come back to him. So this Paramatma means we have to develop this equal vision. Vidyavinayana Sampani Brahmani Gavi Hasani Shuni Chaiva Supakicha Pandita Samadarshana. We need this Samadarshana. We need this equal vision that we can see the super soul in all living entities. And again, we can ask ourselves, do I have this vision? What are the distinctions with which I see? Time is running out. So basically, ultimately, we want to try to transcend these modes. And we need the help of the super soul, but we also need the help of our mind. We need to use our free will, our minute independence, to break these chains of the material energy and ultimately become free. And what does that mean? Really, ultimately, as we've just heard, it means we have to control our desires, and that means controlling the mind. And Krishna, Arjuna says, yeah, this is great. Thank you very much, Krishna, but that is so difficult. And it's easier to control the raging wind. And here we see that the mind is the reins holding the horses of the senses, which were also discussed in the purport today. And the driver is meant to be the intelligence, and the passenger there, that frightened young man, that is meant to be us, the soul. So often these things are completely out of control, and we know the mind often is, is either our friend or our enemy. I'm not sure for all of you, but often my mind is still my worst enemy. Unfortunately, the mind just seems to have a mind of its own and do what it wants to do, not what I want it to do. So like this, the proverbial devil on one shoulder, an angel on the other. One voice is saying, do this, the other voice saying, doing that. But we need to ultimately, and the analogy of the good dog and bad dog, we ultimately need to choose the good dog. And wherever that mind wanders to, we have to grab hold of it and pull it back because it's flickering and unsteady. And we have to bring it back under the control of the senses. It's meant to be controlled. So Arjuna says it's impractical and unendurable to try to control the mind. But Krishna says no, by suitable practice and detachment. So this is the ultimate point here, in one sense, that we have to make the decision. We have to make the conscious decision. Super Soul is waiting to see what we desire. And we have to practice daily, regularly, moment to moment, making a choice that will not land us up in a situation that we regret, which is unfortunately often what happens. So these little things here, the nose, the hand, the ear, the mouth, the eye, these get us into trouble. But the mind is meant to control these senses. And we discussed the process of fall down, which is Deyato Vishyapam Sam. It starts with the contemplation of the objects of the senses. And then one develops a desire to enjoy those objects. So that's lust. And then lust leads to wrath and aggravation and upset. And then ultimately one loses one's memory and intelligence, and one falls down into the material pool from the position, as you see, of a devotee, of someone who's dedicated to Krishna. So this is the danger of the roaming senses. They can just crash us into the rocks on the sea. So to control the senses means we have to control the mind. Apuryamanam machala pratishtam samudram atapa vashanti. But Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita 270 that the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, but the ocean has to be steady and not overflow because of all these incessant desires, means that one has to not be allured and attracted by all of these things, but somehow just knows that it is simply the modes of material nature that are at work here. And then in this way, one actually becomes desireless because one focuses one's desires wholeheartedly, sincerely on trying to serve Krishna. Even when we do that, still the mind will give some grief, but one has to be steady and perpetually trying to serve the Lord, being dedicated. And so ultimately, it's not easy for us to blame the super soul or blame Krishna. Krishna has given us the free will to choose and decide whether we will turn to him or whether we will take shelter of the material energy. And that is a choice that we have the right to make. The material energy will be pulling us in many, many different ways, offering up many, many different opportunities for engagement with her, with the material energy. But we have to consciously choose to using our minute free will. We have to choose to try to serve Krishna to the best of our ability, to recognize that we are the eternal servant of the servants of Krishna. And in this way, we can ultimately make steady progress back to our original position, back to the spiritual world. So like that, with the help of the super soul and by the overcoming of the modes of material nature. So Sorry, it went over. I was going as fast as I could, but I will conclude here. Let me stop sharing screen and open up there. So Hare Krishna. Not sure if anyone has any questions, comments, or reflections.
Thank you, Jai Nitai Prabhu. Wonderful class. Min has a question, but before Min, I'd like to just a quick follow-up, Jai Nitai Prabhu. So, can you describe a little more that springboard into spirituality, the mode of goodness? Is that like somebody who lives on the farm and eats organic cottage cheese and pets cows and has soft voice? How does that sattva guna look on the outside?
Yeah, I mean, we can get into all the details. Bhagavad Gita explains actions and activities in so many different ways in the mode of goodness. What we eat, what we listen to, how we interact. Of course, living in the city versus living in the country. Country is naturally a more mode of goodness space to reside. It will definitely be more conducive to having a calm and clear mind, although it doesn't guarantee that the mind won't still give us grief and trouble. Um, so I don't know if anyone else's experience, although even though India can be a very intense place, my experience whenever I go there is that immediately I find it much more uh, easy to chant Hare Krishna, especially if you go to the Dham, which is obviously not in the modes. The Dham is transcendental. And that's the idea that wherever we are, we can create the transcendental world and generate the mode of goodness, which is more conducive. So means if your house is clean and tidy, your desk is clean and tidy, maybe your desktop on your computer is clean and tidy. This will be more conducive to not being frazzled and fried and more passion. But in order to do that, we have to kind of overcome this passionate tendency so that we can take a little more time to tidy things up and deal with them. So anyway, that's a quick answer. I don't know if that made any sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jai Nitai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
We will ask the devotees to turn on their cameras so Jai Nitai can inspect their rooms if they're tidy enough to be a springboard to transcendence.
I'm not an inspector, but okay. Min, would you like to say something? And it was very nice to meet you in person the other day, Min, and also Jack. So lovely to see you here. Thank you for coming to
Yes.
the program. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you so much. It was very nice to meet you. Yeah, it was such a joy. And thank you for such a beautiful presentation this morning. I was wondering if there's a way for us to view the three gunas in such a way that maybe it can be more helpful for us to live live in it, live through it. I understand that our goal is to transcend them, but because it feels like my existence is just so infused in them that maybe there's a better way for me to view it than just trying to resist it, maybe, and to get out of it, which I know is our goal, but I'm not even sure if that's a good way to see it. Yeah.
Okay, I think if I've understood you correctly, Min, you're saying, is there instead of because we're so engrossed in the modes of material nature, and then it seems like maybe we're just trying to fight to get out of it and using a mentality or consciousness of how do I get out, how do I get out, but maybe is more a better mentality possibly that I accept that I'm in it and figure out how to use the modes of material nature or something like that.
Yeah, yes, perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, and in one sense that's what's encouraged to do. We're at this stage, we're not going to just completely easily break free. That's the idea of the principle of trying to come to the mode of goodness, that we cultivate a higher mode that will facilitate us transcending. At the same time, we perform devotional service. And when one is performing devotional service, one is actually theoretically, not theoretically, one is free from the modes of material nature. Although in the conversation between Devahuti and Kapila Dev, Lord Kapila Dev explains to Devahuti that devotional service can also be performed under the influence of the modes of material nature, which means even you're doing something apparently for Krishna, some transcendental activity. I'm thinking book distribution came to mind, or pujari service, or cleaning Krishna's pots. We can do anything, but still somehow be influenced by the modes of material nature. So it means we still have some fruitive mentality, or we do something in a slothful way, or we do something in a tardy way, or we do something in a angry mood. So all of these things are described there in the Bhagavad Gita also. But when we perform devotional service, the principle is that by connecting with Krishna, Krishna also lifts us. And actually, if we're honest, we all feel that when we come to Krishna consciousness, that even though previously I was maybe struggling and striving somehow to come to a better platform of life where I could basically enjoy more, enjoy better. But then when we come to Krishna consciousness, it's like Krishna just lifts us in a certain way above all of these modes and things that we used to struggle with so hard, or were just such a natural part of our life. Many of those things just, wow, they just don't even matter anymore. So we have transcended in so many ways, but there's often still some residual conditioning or some residual nature that we need to work through. And yes, Prabhupada gave the example that we have to sometimes use a thorn to remove a thorn. So we have to use the modes of material nature, understanding the modes that naturally influence me. Arjuna is a Kshatriya. He's influenced by the mode of passion, but he's still the dearest friend to Krishna, and he's still an instrument of Krishna. And so like that, then he's able to engage his nature, which is influenced by the mode of passion, for the pleasure of Krishna, to accomplish something that Krishna wants to get accomplished. So we also can utilize our nature, which is influenced by the modes, in the service of Krishna to give Krishna pleasure also. I hope that is a
Thank
question.
you. Thank you so much for that.
And we need to, I think the curtains will be opening here in a few moments. So I'll finish thanking you all once again for being present. Please forgive me for the rushed presentation. There's often so much to share and say, and so little time, but lovely to hear from all of you. And thank you very much for being present daily and taking time out of your schedules to make sure you're here every morning. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jai Nitai Prabhu and Bhava Bhakti Devidasi. Darshan time, dear devotees. Hats off. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Govinda, Aham bhajami Govindam, Hari Purusham, Aham bhajami Govindam, Hari Purusham, Aham bhajami. Hanarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Govinda. Govindam Hari Purusham Anjaniyasya Sakalam Driya Priti Manti Yasyam Ipam Ikayanti Shiram Jaganti Anagachimaya Sadhu Alavigrasya Govinda Haripurusham Bhajami Govinda Haripurusham Tamam Bhajami Govinda Haripurusham Tamam Bhajami Govindam Haripurusham Tamam Bhajami Govindam Haripurusham Shishirada Murli Dargor Chandra Bhagavani Ki Jai Shahide Bhagavani Ki Jai Churchalada Murli Dargor Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can obtain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of materials and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet, perfection, fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental light. He is my Lord at birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates, and by him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us, and give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. When I think of a springboard to the spiritual world, I think of Srila Prabhupada's desk. It was always perfectly clean and organized. And on his desk, he wrote the commentaries to the transcendental literatures that we're all diving into. Right? That's a springboard. Srila Prabhupada's.
Could you show us your desk?
No. No. Thank you for putting me on the spot. But I'm inspired after this class. I'm inspired to clean it up. Yeah. Devaki Priti.
Hi, Krishna devotees. I don't know if Jai Nitai Prabhu was on, but I just really appreciated his class so much, and I loved the presentation. That really helps me with understanding, and I loved how he was talking about the 3 different modes of material nature and the parts about the mind, and like he was talking about the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, and just how we can utilize our minds and how we can focus on Krishna. So I just wanted to express gratitude for the class. Very inspiring and such a wonderful way to start the day, where we can immediately be looking like, okay, what mode am I in? And if I'm not in the mode I want to be, how can I try to at least get into the mode of goodness? So, thank you.
Thank you, Devaki Priti, for the recap. Would anyone like to speak, share a reflection, ask a question? Nityananda Chandra Prabhu, We saw you made many comments in the chat. Would you like to speak in line with Guru Sadhan Shastra?
Just about the three modes. This verse is a Sattvam yet Brahma Darshanam. So it's like Sattvam is the window to spiritual reality. So you can either be in Sattva, you can be standing right outside of the Bhakti Center and looking in the window, you know. Are you say there's a Harinam outside. There's a Harinam outside, and you're standing inside the lobby and you're at the window. You can see everything. You're not really there yet, but you can see everything. It's all clear.
Yeah, I like
Then
the point. You may not be there, but you can see clearly. That's a
yeah.
great.
Mode of passion is like you're in the basement. It's like you might hear some some bass beats, but you can't tell. Is it kirtan? Is it just some stereo? You're not really sure. It's things are a little more hazy. And then say if they do a little recording studio in the basement, that's that's the mode of ignorance. You're totally unconscious of everything. Everything is being sealed off.
Thank you, Prabhu. And how can I identify someone who is in the mode of goodness? What markers am I looking at? How do I know?
It's, honesty, clarity, simplicity, attraction to things that are a mode of goodness, attraction to wake up early, attraction to knowledge, an affinity for those things.
Okay, thank you. And what if the desk is not tidy? Is that a disqualification?
That's mode of passion. Some mode of passion's there, and it's mixed. Nothing. It's all these energy. All these modes are mixed.
Yeah, it's always a mix. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Prabhu. Narottam Nitai has his hand up.
I just wanted to say, like, I really like this class. I remember hearing a lecture from His Holiness Roman March about the three modes of material nature and how in the Detroit Temple many years ago. And I also wanted to say that Srila Prabhupada's books, the photos in Srila Prabhupada's books are like windows to the spiritual world. And when you look at the photo of the three modes of material nature and how like it really makes sense because Arjuna asks, despite me knowing all these things, I'm not able to execute a devotional service properly. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says that one or two times. And so like we to really understand the three modes is so important. And one thing I wanted to say is like the brahmanas or like or devotees heart is very pure, but their tongue can be very sharp, and that's to cut through the the attachments that might have been created due to the lower modes. So yeah, we have to be really grateful to the Vaishnavas. So my gratitude, dandavas to all of you, and yeah, please looking forward for the attachments to be cut off. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Narottam Nitai, Prabhu. Okay. Sadhvi has her hand up. Go ahead, Sadhvi.
Hare Krishna, thank you very, very much for today. Sometimes I have learned and I have seen sometimes there are those of us, me, one of them, that physically can't do so much in the form of devotional service physically, and try to do best. What we call to that then? Is it out of ignorance or what? If I may ask. Thank you.
Sadhvi. Nitai Chand, Prabhu.
Sorry, I missed the question. I was.
The question is if someone
For
is.
instance, for instance, I can't do physically so much devotional service. I can't be active. I can't go to temple, especially in the winter time. It's very, very difficult. So I can't do it. So what is that cause? It's caused mode of what? Thank you.
And modes are based on what's in the consciousness. So it's not about the like if you're not able to, That's not necessarily, it depends on if we're unable because we're being controlled by our sense of laziness, or unable because we have the physical limitation, or we're unable. It's depending on the what kind of consciousness is behind the act.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chris put in the chat, we can create temple in our hearts. Great. Chris, you are on fire. Chris says, one who is in the mode of goodness is always satisfied with what he gets. That's an important quality. Being happy with what Krishna is providing us with. Because Krishna carries what we lack and preserves what we have. On this high note, we invite our reciters to recite. Sage, Annabelle, Isaiah. We see Sage. Hare Krishna. Sage, good morning. Nice to see you. Okay. Karen, Hare Krishna.
Okay, buddy. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Morning class ki jai, Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Prabhu ki jai, everyone on this call ki jai, everybody on YouTube ki jai, Sage, Annabelle, Isaiah, special jai to you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna.